G'day guys, Dane here from Clarkey's NRL column. Welcome back to my Tuesday tipping video, a weekly video where I give my tips for the upcoming NRL round and a little bit of a preview for each match. Bit of a preface here guys, I haven't had the luxury of viewing the team list. I'm recording this a little bit ahead of schedule because I'm at work tonight. So obviously there could be some massive outs or ins there that influence or change my tips, but I don't have the luxury of viewing them beforehand, so here goes. Sharks versus Panthers, guys. Both sides coming off a loss. However, I do think the Sharks have looked the better team this last fortnight. Panthers must be getting towards that sort of desperate zone where we see teams typically come out and play some of their best footy. I think back to the Bulldogs about a fortnight ago. They made those changes. They were getting desperate. They hadn't had a win yet. And then they came out and put on a clinical performance. Despite that, it's just impossible for me to tip the Panthers. I just can't see any foreseeable switches or changes in that side that's going to essentially flip their performances upside down, guys. I've been busy going through all the stats because the season is 1/5 of the way over, and here's some concerning stats for the Panthers. They're last in points, in sets completed. They are bottom 3 in tackle breaks, line breaks, and offload. They have the most missed tackles in the competition. They have the most errors in the competition, and they're top 3 for penalties conceded. Having sort of that background information on how the Panthers have performed this year, it's really impossible for me to tip them here. Sharkies have the home ground advantage, so I'm going to go with the Sharks here, guys. Then we go to Friday Night Footy. We have the Bulldogs versus the Rabbitohs. Now, I feel bad here, but it's really hard to predict anything else but Rabbitohs domination here. Unless Dean Pay makes some radical changes to that Bulldogs side again, their inexperienced halves will not be enough to get over the clinical likes of Damien Cook, Cody Walker, and Adam Reynolds. I think the Bunnies get this one done very convincingly, and I think Bulldogs are sort of headed for that period again where we see them lose a couple in a row, then Dean Pay makes some drastic changes, it re-energizes, enthuses the side, puts everyone on notice a little bit, and then they play some great footy. I think that's where the Bulldogs are headed, whereas we've seen the Rabbitohs pretty consistent throughout 2019. Even if the Bulldogs do turn up and try to out-enthuse them early like they did against the Melbourne Storm, we know the Rabbitohs are good enough to hang on to those games. We've seen them do it twice this year against the Titans and the Warriors, and they also almost did it against the Manly Sea Eagles. When you put all that together, I really can't tip anyone else here but the Rabbitohs, guys. Then we have the Storm versus the Roosters. My match of the round, guys. How could it not be? The grand final rematch. I can't wait for this one. But it's so hard to predict. Now, the Storm have the home ground advantage here, and from what we do know, Amy Park is a genuine home ground advantage. Almost every player will say that Amy Park is the hardest stadium to travel to and get a win. When I go through and look at these teams statistically, the Storm have performed a little bit better in 2019, but we have to factor in the Roosters have been missing Jared Warrior-Hargraves, Cooper Cronk, and Jake Friend for periods throughout this opening 5 rounds. I guess when you just put all that together, it is a flip of the coin match, and I think we can expect it to sort of be sitting on the fence between these two for every time they meet this year. They're both the benchmark sides of this competition, both so clinical and professional with their approach. I'm going to go with the Storm, guys, purely because I think Amy Park is a little bit more of a home ground advantage than potentially playing at the Sydney Cricket Ground or ANZ, etc., etc. So I like the Storm there. Then we go to across the dish to New Zealand. We've got the Warriors versus the Cowboys now. As I said, this match is in New Zealand, and the Cowboys have been struggling heavily at home. If you can't get in the car and drive to the stadium and play your best footy, and then you're driving home afterwards to go see your family, I just don't see how the Cowboys are going to get into a mindset to travel overseas. Then you have the time difference. Then you have the weather difference. There's all these different factors that are against the Cowboys here, and I just feel if they haven't been able to string together some good footy at home, they're going to struggle going across to New Zealand. The Warriors last week, I go back to last week, for example here, they looked the better side against the Rabbitohs. They were probably very unlucky to lose. They were missing Blake Green. He withdrew before kickoff. Chanel Harris-Tavita was absolutely fantastic. If Blake Green's back this week, or if he was there last week, I think they might have done enough to get over the Rabbitohs. But the Cowboys last week and for most of this season, guys, they just haven't looked themselves. And for that reason, it's really hard for me to tip them here. So I'm going to go with the Warriors to win this one. Then we have the Dragons versus the Sea Eagles. Now, guys, this is two sides that are very high on confidence. Both sides are riding a 3-game winning streak. So they're both coming in with a lot of confidence. And you have to imagine whoever wins here leaves with a lot more confidence. Now, I'll preface this one. I like the Dragons a little bit more. We've seen how clinical they can be at the start of the season. And I think they're starting to develop a little bit of a run now where we might see them win 5 or so from here on the trot. The Dragons' performance last week, 40-4 against the Bulldogs, not letting any points in until past the 75th minute. Look, that was absolutely clinical. It was a very polished performance, probably a little bit more so polished than the Manly Sea Eagles. Now, the Sea Eagles, on the back of losing Tom Trbojevic, have adapted their play style, and they're now playing through the middle off the back of Adam Fanua-Blake and Martin Tapau. And when you try to do that against a forward pack like the St. George Illawarra Dragons, it doesn't always work because they do have those experienced heads littered throughout that pack. I'm talking of Tariq Sims, I'm talking of Tyson Frizzell, and I'm talking of Paul Vaughan, James Graham, Cam McInnes. The list sort of goes on there. So I think the Dragons are perfectly poised here to counter the way Manly has been playing the past couple of weeks. I think their forwards do win the middle here, and on the back of that, Hunt and Norman are able to implement a running game, and we saw how devastating that was last week against the Doggies. Obviously, they put 40 points on, and both halves ran for over 100 metres. When I combine all that together, I think it could be good night Manly here, and I'm going to have to tip the Dragons. This one's a little bit strange. I'm not sure why they've featured Jared Wallace on the picture there because he has been suspended for a shoulder charge. But I'll preface this one right away, guys, because you can all see I'm wearing a Titans membership hat. I'm going to tip the Knights here, unfortunately. I'd like to tip the Titans after what I saw last week. I wasn't heavily impressed, but I did see a side that put up a pretty good fight. However, from that fight, we have now lost Ash Taylor with a partial ACL tear. We've lost AJ Brimson with a broken thumb, and we've lost Jared Wallace to suspension for 2 games. And I go back to the Knights last week, and I think the pressure definitely has to be setting on that side. You have Mitchell Pearce, who was the sole captain. He doesn't appear to be handling that too well. And we have Nathan Brown as a coach in realistically his first year in a while as an NRL coach, where he has some sort of expectation and some sort of, I guess, pressure to deliver something with the squad he has. And they haven't done so far. So I think that pressure's just slowly mounted up. And this could be the game where we see the Knights sort of unleash their best footy on the back of Mitchell Pearce really stepping up, taking aim at his critics and putting in a very solid performance. So for that reason, unfortunately, I'm going to have to tip the Knights. All right, now this sounds weird, guys. We go to the Raiders versus the Broncos, and we have a top 4 side versus a bottom 4 side. When I say that from recent years, we're definitely thinking Raiders as that bottom 4, Broncos as that top 4. However, it's the other way around this year. The Raiders are a top 4 side, and the Broncos are a bottom 4 side. Raiders have just looked so good in recent games, and especially closing out halves with Sam Williams' clinical kicking game. Now, Jack Whiten ranks highest in the NRL for errors at the moment. He is their 5'8", but Sam Williams' football style just complements this Raiders side just so well. And you go back to closing out, we'll go to last week, the Parramatta. They closed out the first half and the second half very effectively, holding the Eels to 0 points. And then when I look at the Broncos closing of their halves, they let a try in with 3 minutes to go in the first half, and then they conceded the match winner with 2 minutes to go in the second half when Michael Cheekham scored that miraculous try. So for that reason, I'm going to have to tip the Raiders here. I think they have the ability to sort of win the bigger moments of this match with their current halves combination, whereas I think the Broncos are going to continue to struggle a little bit. That being said, guys, it's been un-Broncos performances for this whole year. This could be the game where it all clicks. I'm not so confident on this tip, guys, but I will tip the Raiders. In the final game, Easter Monday, guys, the Eels take on the West Tigers. I like the Tigers here. I think Eels are starting to show little bits of signs of inconsistency and a little bit more so of the 2018 Eels as opposed to this 2019 Eels. When I look at their last week against the Raiders, obviously hugely disappointing. I think it's going to take another loss this week for the Eels to sort of kick it into gear again and sort of have that set in their minds that we don't want another year like this. We don't want another 2018, guys. Let's go out there. But I don't think they're at that stage yet. I think it'll take another loss. Meanwhile, the Tigers last week were superb. I just spoke about it then. They owned the big moments against the Broncos. Josh Reynolds is just, his enthusiasm and effort levels can never be faulted. And Luke Brooks also looks spectacular. Either way, guys, I'm going to tip the Tigers here. I think they're a little bit better poised to win this game. But what a way to baptise Bankwest Stadium. I can't wait to see the first ever NRL game there. That's my tips for round 6, guys. Feel free to leave your tips in the comments or agree, disagree with some of mine. Thanks for watching, and everyone have a great day.